Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Sahana Purohit, and I'm the chair of the Acton Democratic Town Committee. Welcome. We are the local arm of the Democratic Party here in Acton, and our goal is to support our community, encourage civic engagement, and help connect residents with the candidates and issues that matters most locally. Also, a huge thanks to all our committee members for their support and selfless work. A shout out to our Vice Chair Sam Fieldman, who's behind the camera tonight recording this event. We'll be sharing the recording with the community soon. And of course, a sincere thank you to all our candidates. Running for office takes time, energy, and a real commitment to public service. We truly appreciate your willingness to step up and serve Acton. Tonight is meant to be an informal and welcoming. Each candidate will have about 4 to 5 minutes to introduce themselves. We'll also ask a couple of standard questions so that everyone has a fair and equal opportunity to share their views. If time allows, we'll take a few questions from the audience as well. This is not a debate, just a chance for all of us to listen, learn, and connect. We will begin this evening with our school committee candidates, followed by select board, Acton Water District commissioners, and other candidates. So with that, we'll get started. We do have the current chair of the Acton Boxborough School Committee, Tori Campbell, on Zoom with us. Tori, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Sahana, and thank you to the entire Democratic Town Committee for hosting this forum and for creating this really great space to connect in this way. I'm really sorry I can't be with you in person this evening. I wanted to start by just acknowledging I'm not actually affiliated with any political party. I began my voting life studying the nonpartisan role of the military when I was a cadet at West Point, which is an incredibly diverse community. And I went on to serve in the Army for over 20 years under Presidents Bush, Clinton, and Obama. And that experience shaped my commitment to being accessible to everyone in our community, regardless of political perspective. And I just find it hard to break. Oh, well, I guess it's 30 years of habit there. So there you are. And at the same time, I am so deeply grateful for the partnership and support I have received from so many members of the Democratic Town Committee. Many of you have taken the time to guide me in understanding local government. You stood alongside me as we've worked to meet the needs of our community, and we make a great team. And I look forward to continuing these partnerships. I'm married to John, my West Point classmate. As an Army officer, I commanded a company. I taught history at West Point. I got to lead a congressionally directed project to completion at the Pentagon. There's actually an order out there that has my name on it as the point of contact, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. And I also deployed to Bosnia and Iraq. I've been a working mom at home with kids through my husband's Afghanistan deployment. And through that, I know the power of a community that comes together to navigate adversity together. When we transitioned out of the Army, John and I pulled our kids out of school, and we homeschooled and traveled for 2 years. There was a lot of camping and backpacking. Settling in Acton in 2018, our kids attended McCarthy Town and RJ Gray. One is now a graduate, and the other is currently attending the high school. I earned 2 master's degrees at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and I've taught for 5 years at a small independent school in Concord. For the last 3 years, I've used these experiences to lead our district through its most complex challenges. I talked a lot about that last night at the League of Women Voters, and so I'll skip that for now. But I do want to take a moment to express my appreciation for the incredible input our community has provided to the school committee this year. I really appreciate the partnership of everyone in the difficult work of AB Forward. I've heard a lot of people say we haven't been listening, and I want to see if I can complicate that thinking a little bit because it's a lot more complex than you might think. So for school committee members, we got to digest community feedback from over 5,000 surveys, 354 written public comments, over 600 school committee emails, which I got to respond to, 20 hours of questions and comments from the public. That is a lot to digest. And in doing so, it is very evident there is no single community perspective. The input we received has helped us identify and balance trade-offs. This has led to stronger decisions about both the structure we need and the care we need to take in implementing it. So I want to highlight 3 examples of how community input has shifted my thinking. First of all, I remember looking at the option for full grade bands. 3 schools, one that was pre-KK in Boxborough, and then grades 1 through 3 at one of the Acton campuses and 4 through 6 at the other. I know the academic strengths of this model from the Elementary Budget Task Force's work, but when parents looked at it, they raised questions, which research affirmed, about the number of physical transitions that we might have between buildings over the course of a student's K through 6 experience. They also raised concerns about the logistics of having siblings in 3 separate buildings, losing student mentoring opportunities between older and younger students, and impacting school community connections. And that led me to rule this out as a feasible option, and instead to focus on a modified version that could be accomplished. Another example was thinking about keeping our schools balanced. They're unbalanced right now through our open enrollment program. And so what I was hearing is that both educators and parents were saying, do you realize that we have an uneven distribution of students with various needs across our schools? And that means that there's an uneven teaching load. Some teachers have heavier loads than others. And there's also unequal student access to support, meaning that it, depending on which building you might be in, might be whether you get extra help. And that impacts all our students, not just our students that have high needs or that are enrolled in special education programming. And so it was clear that if we were continuing in our current buildings and we just decided to add a few students and educators from Conant, we weren't going to be able to shift this imbalance. Creating more balanced high-need student populations is really important, and that led me to look to geographic enrollment as a way to set our new schools up for success. So then there was a lot of discussion about forming the new schools, and I will say that just about everyone I've spoken with is worried about the change in the transition, and it's hard. I absolutely acknowledge that. And it's also really significant that we heard concerns raised from members of 4 school communities, from Conant to begin with, from Blanchard, from Miriam, from McCarthy Town, all in 4 different waves. So it was like we were talking about one community's experience at a time. And they were telling us that closing these individual schools would mean losing their sense of school identity, existing relationships, best practices that that school might have, and that sense of belonging. And so as we're thinking about what does that look like, how do we create schools that allow these things to be sustained, we recognize that having a potential for an insider-outsider dynamic for students and staff, going from 6 schools into 5, was probably going to be really difficult, that it was not going to set us up for success. And so again, as we started thinking about it, we realized we needed a better mix. And again, that kept leading back to this geographic enrollment because it allows us to build new schools on equal footing rather than assimilating into existing schools. So through all of this, many families have emphasized the importance of minimizing disruption. And ultimately, the school committee had to make a really difficult choice. We believed that our district would be stronger if every student and educator started on an equal footing, building a new school community together as a foundation for long-term excellence. And at the same time, we then turned to the administration and said, we need to acknowledge what our community is saying. This is hard, it is scary. How can we ease this transition? And we have seen our administration respond thoughtfully to make this transition as smooth as possible. I think one of the most important steps is the focus on thoughtful student placement, engaging current educators, incorporating family input on peer connections, and collaboratively developing class lists to be shared in June. This gives students and families the summer to begin forming new relationships, rather than waiting until late August, as we would in a typical year. This has been an incredibly difficult process, and I am deeply grateful to everyone who has shared their perspectives with the school community and has also listened to and supported one another along the way. As we move forward, I am confident that we can continue to extend each other grace, rebuild trust, and come together to create strong, connected school communities for all of our students. And with that, hopefully that tells you a little bit more about me and some of the things that I've gotten to think about this year, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tori. That was a really great introduction, and we got to know quite a bit. So, with that, I would like to ask you build something more on what you just touched upon about the about our school communities. With so many options on how to move forward, the long restructuring process for the elementary schools has been a very difficult one. What would you do to bring our school communities back together?
So I think the first thing is that we need to be able to have good conversations about the things that we love about our schools now. We have many, many things in common, and we have things that we think that are unique that we might want to share with each other. And that conversation is already happening through our PTOs. I'm really excited about that. And also through the Common Thread Task Force that the school committee is standing up to help the community through the summer. I am so excited about the idea of having class lists out in June and contacts to parents so that there's an opportunity for new friendships to form over the summer before they go into school. That's something we've never done before. And I'm actually going to be really curious about the input that we receive after we've done that. And if that is something that we think is really important. I think that's really a key part of the extra mile. Another thing that we're thinking about is how do you support PTOs as they move into that first meeting of the year? They're going to be, in many cases, working through the mechanics of transitioning. And so families are figuring that out. It would be really helpful to be able to just hand them basically a toolkit of here is an event that is set up that you can hold that will help bring people together, and you don't have to do all the planning because we've worked through this for you. On the educator end, I am so excited that the administration was really deliberate in trying to move pairs of educators so that as they come together, bringing their diverse experiences from across all of our schools, they've got a thought partner there that they have experience with, but they can also share these ideas across our schools because we use the same curriculum, but there are some different ideas in how we might go about presenting it. And I'm just really excited to see what our educators are going to do with this. And I realize that right now they are all kind of reeling from getting the certainty of where they're going next, and that is really challenging. And I hope that we get to the point where that becomes okay, what can we build together, and getting excited about what comes next.
Thank you. Just one more question. Over the past few years, many non-student facing areas have been cut. As we have limited budgets under Proposition 2.5 moving forward, would you propose making cuts to teachers or asking the towns for Proposition 2.5 override?
Oh, we are bumping right on top of our class sizes. So the discussion then absolutely becomes, are we going to increase class sizes even further with all of the consequences that come with that? Or are we going to go for a Prop 2.5 override? And that's absolutely a conversation that's on the table. Last night, when they asked in the next 2 years, I said maybe because I don't know when that's going to happen. We have about $1.2 million left in the untaxed levy capacity within Acton. It really depends on what happens with health insurance. And what we're hearing from both our auditor and from the health insurance company is to expect another double-digit hit next year. And we also haven't completed negotiations. So there are a lot of budget pressures. This is absolutely on the radar. I can't think of anything else we could possibly do internally to find something else to cut.
Thank you. Anyone from the audience has a question for Tori? Tori, thank you so much for being with us. And I know you have to get to school committee meeting right now. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you all, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Perfect. Thanks. Next up, the next candidate, I'm just going to call out names random. If you guys want to be up next, just let me know. According to the list that I have up here, Dennis Arthur Buranek, sorry, extremely sorry.
Good evening. First, again, I also want to thank the Town Democratic Committee for hosting this event and allowing us to introduce ourselves to you and to the community and understand a little bit about our backgrounds and why we're running for school committee. We need people like this and group like this to continue supporting the democracy in our country now more than ever. I also want to thank my fellow candidates for running. This is a large commitment, and I know we all have our hearts in the right place to help the schools and the children's outcome. My wife and I moved to Acton in 2008 for three key reasons. First was a shorter commute to my job in Lexington. Second was that our second daughter was born with severe hearing loss and needed special needs, and we wanted to get within the Minuteman early intervention catchment area, as well as into the Acton school systems, as we knew that they were fairly supportive of special education and the needs of special needs kids. And then lastly, like many of us, we moved to town for the high quality schools for all of our children. Now that we have two children out of the high school, my oldest started in kindergarten in 2008 in McCarthy Town, went through R.J. Gray and the Acton Boxborough High School. Hard to believe she's a college graduate now, but so it is, time moves on. And my second daughter is also, she's a freshman at UVM this year. I felt it was time for me to give back to the community and make sure that our school systems remained quality and delivered high student outcomes for the next generation of kids. Many of us are keenly aware, and Tori mentioned many of the things that have challenged the district over the last decade, from COVID, the rising cost of healthcare, which we all feel, and then many other factors. That the district has weathered these fairly well, in my opinion. But we know with the reconfiguration of schools, we need to come together as a community to build the next generation of schools. Myself, I spent most of my childhood in the Pacific Northwest, but I did move around quite a bit as my dad was in the military. I attended public schools and then was fortunate to be able to attend MIT as an undergraduate and then a graduate student, finishing with a PhD in aeronautics and astronautics in 2001. Since then, I've been leveraging my technical skills, solving some of the very hardest problems in defense and aerospace. As a keynote, many of you may have watched the Artemis II launch last week. That had a technology that my team originally prototyped 15 years ago on another mission to the moon. And then I led the study that designed the next generation of that technology that's now flying on Artemis and performing very well, from what I understand. Throughout my career, I've encountered a lot of complex technical and personal issues. In aerospace engineering, we're taught to look at not only the individual technical pieces of a problem, but also how they're all going to work together. If the engines work great, but the wings don't, the airplane doesn't fly. So we have to make sure all parts of the system will work together. And the same is true for systems like school systems. I returned in the mid-2010s to get my executive MBA because I realized I needed better skills at managing those larger teams and more complex things as I developed in my career, and developed an appreciation for the systems thinking skills that that are needed to lead transformation and change, which is my current role, where I lead a company-wide transformation effort, trying to bring people together and focusing on the people, the process, and the technology. Since my kids entered the AB schools in 2008, I've been involved in their education through volunteering in their classroom at their time at McCarthy Town, through R.J. Gray and at the high school. Outside of the classroom, I've coached youth sports, and I've spent the last 10 years as an adult volunteer, first in PAC 70 Acton and now in Troop 1 Acton as the Assistant Scoutmaster. A year ago, I had the opportunity to participate in the AB Forward Steering Committee, sort of dipping my toe in the water of this process. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and through the process, I learned a lot of things. And as Tori said, I learned a lot of things that changed my mind as I read through the data that was out there, reviewed the public comments, talked to friends and colleagues, and anyone that really wanted to talk about the AB Forward and what they were doing. I listened to the outside consultants and their opinions on various school configurations and how they impacted student outcomes. And I realized that there was really a lot of different options, and that nothing was going to make everybody happy, and that really the only bad option was if we did nothing. We needed sustainable schools. We needed sustainable budgets. I believe that through my personal and professional experience, they provide me solid foundation for a seat on the school committee. In that role, I commission to continue to listen to the community and learning from the members and from my fellow committee members to understand all the different perspectives of the issues that we have to address and base my decisions on the information we receive. With that, I will end my intro remarks and be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So it'll be the same two questions
Sure.
that we asked Tori. With
Yeah.
so many options on how to move forward, the long restructuring process for the elementary schools has been a very difficult one.
Mhm.
what would you do to bring our school communities back together?
Well, I think it starts with the parents. I think supporting the schools and the changes they've made after a long and thoughtful process, and bringing us to understand why it was made, and then helping the kids recognize that they're going to meet new friends. It doesn't mean they have to lose their old ones. As I said, growing up in a military family, I changed schools quite a bit. So I recognize the difficulty it is, but at the end of the day, you always can find new friends and make new acquaintances wherever you go. And I think the kids are pretty resilient, and they'll figure it out if we as the parents in the community show them the way. I think the other thing is supporting the educators, right? We can't forget that they're also moving around different buildings, maybe different principals in schools, and understanding what their needs are, right? They're the key that makes our school system work. The students are there, they're the outcomes, they're what we focus on a lot, but really the continuity and the success comes from the high quality educators that we can hire and maintain in our district.
Thank you. Over the past few years, many non-student facing areas have been cut. As we have limited budgets under Proposition 2.5 moving forward, would you propose making cuts to teachers or asking the towns for Proposition 2.5 override?
Sure. Well, I have not been as deep into the budgets as Tori has. I have looked at them, and I can look at them and say there's not a lot more to cut from a discretionary side. And with class sizes raising to the limits where we have our policies, it doesn't make sense to me that we would cut student-facing issues even more. Looking at the town budget overall, I think there's a more systemic issue both at the town level and the state level about funding schools. I'm not sure that time box this into the next 2 years. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to fix all of those in the next 2 years. But if it means we have to continue, if we have to pass another override to maintain the quality of our school system, I would be in favor of that.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience for Dennis? Yeah.
This is hard work. I'm Jim Carey. I
Hi.
guess I'll do the official
Hi, Jim.
introduction.
Nice to meet you.
And with regards to AB Forward, I actually support, my kids are just a little bit older than yours.
Yeah.
They're both through the school system, so now we're just watching it all unfold. But I support the school committee taking a strong stand to do something that will help us be more responsible with spending in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Still want to make sure that our schools remain one of the top draws for Acton. And my question then is, how do you see the school committee continuing with this transformation?
So let me make sure I understand the question. You're saying, how does the school committee continue to support those structural changes that are needed there to keep the budget sustainable in the future? Is that a good summary?
That's a good summary.
Well, I think, first we have to work through the next year or two and see, are all the things that we said going to happen in terms of the savings actually happen? We have to look at what we said, which is a prediction. That's in the future. Let's look at the data and see, did it make sense? Did it match what we thought was going to happen? And if not, yet why not? Right? From there, depending on the continued enrollment data, and if it's continuing decreasing, if the state funding formulas continue the way they are, we have to look and see are there other configuration options that we need to look to. I don't know that there are many. We looked, as part of the AB Forward Committee, we looked at, well, I think they had 13 options, but when you consider all the different V1s and V2s, it was way more than that, right? So we had a lot of different things, but they all had a variety of pluses and minuses. There was no one clear option that we had to go into, but I think where the school committee went ended up as one of the ones that was best for involving everybody in the change and making sure that we did not have to do this again in 2 or 3 years. So I'm hopeful that with the configuration changes they've made at the elementary level, that this will be sustainable over the at least next half decade. But again, we have to look at the data and see what that says as we go forward.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thanks. So next I would like to call upon Diego Represa. I hope I pronounced your name right, Diego.
Hello, good evening. My name is Diego Represa. I'm a father of 4 young kids. My oldest is 6, so they are 6 and under. He's in kindergarten this year, so very excited period for us. I grew up in Spain. I'm originally from Spain. I went to school in one of the poorest districts in Madrid. That wasn't enough. When I was a teenager, my father got sick with MS. So that was like very difficult situation for my family. I have 4 siblings. So they were rocky years. And when I was in 7th grade, I had to start tutoring kids in lower levels to be able to support economically my family. But despite that effort, but I had very good teachers. They support me. The community support me. My parents did an amazing job, and I was able to, thanks to the public system in college, I was able to go to college, and I was able to become an aerospace engineer. I graduated with honors, and I have been working as an aerospace engineer, doing engines for the airplanes my whole career. So I'm very thankful for all the support that I received during those years that allowed me to develop all my potential and be able to now give back. And I am able to support, do what I learned to help make better engines so people can fly. We fly very often as a family. My office is right below the airport where the airplanes go down to land in Logan. So every day as I go into the office, I hear the airplanes flying above me. So that reminds me, what I am doing today in the office is affecting the safety of the people, is affecting the life of a lot of people. So the same way, when I go to work, I pass next to the high school, and I see those kids, and I have the same feeling, how I can help those kids, because they are going to help tomorrow. We know there are a lot of issues in our society, maybe we cannot solve them, but maybe we can raise the kids that are going to solve those problems in the next years. So as I said, I'm very thankful for everything I receive, and I look for every opportunity that I have to be able to pay forward what I receive. I was mentoring high school students for 10 years. The one-on-one, I like the one-on-one with them, understanding the real problems that they have, and helping them navigate those through those, high school years are important years and difficult years. So I did that for 10 years in my alma mater. I was in Africa. I was volunteering in Africa. I'm a foster father, and now I would like to help the kids in our town becoming part of the school committee. I think I can help as part of the team. And some of the goals I have, I think this reorganization has been difficult. There has been a lot of division, as we have mentioned, and I think we have been talking about the budget, we have been talking about the organization, but I think we need to shift back the conversation to talk about education. What are the real challenges that the kids and the teachers are facing every day, right? Now, one key challenge is new technologies. How are we handling those, right? I was talking with one teacher the other day, and he was telling me, hey, I'm not teaching, I am policing, because they are all the day with the Chromebooks looking at YouTube. We put filters, they jump over them because they are very smart. I cannot teach the kids because I have to be policing them so they are not watching videos all the days in class. That's what one teacher was telling me. Another teacher from a middle school was telling me, the kids nowadays, they are not responsible. I cannot do projects with them because I have to be, they are not able to be safe around the shop because they are not responsible. So how we are going to help those teachers? How we are going to help those kids to be able? Because at the end, the ones that are losing are the kids, right? They are not learning as much as they can. They could be doing very cool projects in high school, and they are not doing that. How we are going to help? So I think we need to bring the conversation back to education and figure out what policies we are going to develop to help raise good kids that they can learn and they can enjoy their experience, because that's going to affect their whole life, right? There are going to be a lot of problems down the road, but let's give them a good foundation so they can keep developing as they grow up. So I think that's one of my goals as part of the school community. I would like also to bring consistency across all the schools. Before we we don't have the opportunity anymore to choose a school as parents, right? That was a luxury that we had before. We don't have it anymore. It's a decision done. To me, like, I don't want to go back to open that decision. Decision are done. I think we need to move on. But as a school committee, we need to ensure, now that the parents cannot choose, we need to ensure that there is consistency across all the schools. So I think that's another very important goal, to ensure that we cannot leave it to the principals. We had to, as a school committee, which are the ones that oversee all the schools, to ensure there is that consistency across all the schools. And then the third goal, and to me that's an obligation, so I think the consistency across the schools is a duty based on the decision we have made. And now we have also an obligation with the towns about the long-term budget issue. This reorganization has helped, but hasn't solved the issue. We still have a gap. So we need to figure out how we are going to solve that gap, because we own that to our town, like, and we own it to our teachers, right? Like, we cannot be like every year going to budget season and suddenly this is like, okay, let's see if I am fired this year or not. Like, what's going to happen? Like, we cannot be living in that way, right? So those are goals, and I think it's very important in the conversation to distinguish between the goals and the tools, right? We are going to be talking now, like, that's kind of the reorganization. That was a tool to get a goal, right? The tool was trying to help the budget issue, and so that's why, like, now we are going to get into the superintendent selection, for example, or we are going to get into choosing the names of the school. And I am afraid that we are going to get into more discussions, and wow, this is going to get another, like, very difficult conversations, and that is going to distract us from the goals. Right? The goals is to provide good education to our kids. So I think those things are important, but keeping that mindset of what are tools and what are goals help us provide a good background to our conversation to really, like, get where we want to go. Because if not, we can get lost in the weeds and then we are not going to progress. So I think that's very important, and I think that's something I can help, like, bringing that kind of mindset to distinguish between one thing and the other. I don't have the solution to all the problems. I think I can bring tools, I can bring ideas. I think that another very important tool is to listen to teachers. So that's what I am trying to do, and I hope I can keep doing. As I said, like, their feedback is, to me, is very important. And as I said, like, they are difficult topics. We need to brainstorm, we need to come up with solutions, but we need to be clear what are really our goals, so we are really chasing the things that matter.
Thank you, Diego. So again, the same two questions. The first one, with so many options on how to move forward, the long restructuring process for the elementary schools has been a very difficult one. What would you do to bring our school communities back together?
I think one of the keys is what I was talking about, the goals. Like, when we bring the conversation back to talk about, hey, we want to provide good education to the kids, I think that's a common goal across the community. And we need to help everyone to go back to that goal and understand everything looking at that goal. Like, everything we do, every decision we do, we have to analyze how that's impacting our goal. And if we all have the same goal, that helps to figure out the best solution. And then the other thing, kind of going with I was mentioning before, I think there is a lot of tension, especially with this geographic reorganization, like assignment, geographic enrollment. Like, there is a lot of tension because, like we have been saying, like, for years, when I was going last year to visit the different schools, they were stressing the differences between the schools. And then this year, it seems that there are not any difference. So I think that's why people is stressed, is because they know, as a parent, the parents that have visited the different schools, they know there are differences. So the way to bring us together is, okay, let's define what's the consistency across all the schools, so we can just relax and say, it doesn't matter where I go, I know I'm going to get the best and I'm going to get the same, it doesn't matter where I am in that going. So I think having common goals and ensuring that consistency is going to help us, one, get all in the same page and get relaxed because we know we are going to a good place.
Thank you. Over the past few years, many non-student facing areas have been cut. As we have limited budgets under Proposition 2.5 moving forward, would you propose making cuts to teachers or asking the towns for Proposition 2.5 overrides?
So I think the problem with the budget, and when I am struggling a little bit, is the numbers are a little bit confused because I don't know what are numbers before reorganization and numbers after reorganization. I mean, it's clear that the reorganization is not going to solve the whole gap. So I think the way we have been living is we have been living with this is the forecast for the next years, which is above the budget that we are going to have. And then we go to next year. It's kind of surviving year after year. And to me, you cannot manage that. Like, we need to establish a plan with what we have. What's the budget that we have? We have this budget. Okay, with that budget, what we can accomplish this. Then everything that is above of that should be opportunities, or we have risks. So that's, once you have your plan, okay, this is the plan, because you cannot build sobre a foundation that you don't have. You cannot build a plan about a budget that you don't have, right? So you need to build first your plan, and you cannot present a budget a plan that is like about your budget. So it's like saying, like, hey, I want to do all this and all this and all this, and then, okay, yeah, but your day have 24 hours. Yeah, then establish what you are going to do in those 24 hours, and then do a list of nice to have opportunities, things. So that in order to get that budget, that plan, that realistic plan, because that's the way you can compare later. If you have a plan that is not realistic, then you cannot compare and say, oh, I'm doing better, you cannot analyze the variance, right? What is variance analysis in project planning? You need to have a plan that is realistic, and then you compare and say, I'm doing better, okay. Or then in that way, you have your plan, and then you have your risks or your opportunities, and then you look at those and you say, okay, I'm gonna work in this opportunity because I need it, because I want to improve, I want to get this other goal. So I think we need to establish clear goals, then define everything that have a clear plan that is realistic with the things we have, and then make a list of what are the opportunities, and then let's chase those opportunities, right? I think one opportunity could be like our facilities are underutilized, right? Like 2/3 of their life, they are not being used. They are alone. What are we doing with them? Can we use them? Can we get more revenue using them? Like, we have great facilities that we are not using. Like, that's my school. That's one. As I said, my school was in a very poor district. One of the things they did is they wanted to have a better soccer field for the kids, right? So what they did is they rented during the weekends the soccer field that was just a mud place. They rented to another company, and then they put a soccer league there. And with the revenue, they improved the soccer field that we ended up as a student using, and then they were able to get more revenue to maintain the school. I don't know, we can look at options like that, but I think, first of all, we need to have a clear, what's the plan? A plan that is within the budget, don't build in the clouds. We need to build in foundations, and then figure out opportunities, chase those opportunities, and we will see. I don't think we can afford another override in the next 2 years, as they asked yesterday. Like, we just came from an override. Our budget is, compared with other towns, like, we have an immense budget. Like, we need to figure out how to make it work, because if we don't do that, we are talking a lot about diversity and bringing people with different backgrounds and all that. If we increase the budget, we are becoming less and less diverse community. So if diversity is an important topic for our community, which I have heard a lot, we have to be consistent with that idea. And if we do another override every 2 years because we don't have a clear plan, then what we are going to do? Like, we are pushing people out. We are reducing the diversity of our town. So that's why I think we need to establish a realistic plan, do a list of opportunity and risk, and then let's chase those opportunities, and then we'll see where we go. But if not, we cannot build in clouds.
Thank you, Diego. Any questions from the audience? Stella has the microphone.
One of the most important responsibilities for the school committee next year is hiring the new superintendent. Would you please share experiences that you have had in hiring and what your thoughts are about the process of hiring the new superintendent?
I have been involved in hiring, like, mostly colleagues. That's like, typically I have been involved when they are hiring more people in my department. And so one is understand the curriculum. I like to make, like, specific questions to understand, like, real experience. I mean, the titles are important, but I like more the one-on-one, like being able to talk with them, understand what are their priorities. I would like to understand, in this case, for our community, does that person understand our problems? Has they faced those same problems? Maybe they are not exactly, I don't know, maybe this is the first time that they are training for superintendent, I don't know. Or maybe it's like the third time that they are a superintendent. Like, okay, like, do you understand the problems? Like, you bring ideas? Are you open to listen to the issues that we have here? Are you open to listen to the ideas coming from the community? So that to me is important. Also to understand, like, do you understand the challenge the kids are facing nowadays? I was talking about like the new technologies and how that's affecting the development of the kids and the whole like environment in the school and the classes. Like, I would like to understand what his opinion about, her opinion about that. So those are some of the topics. Like, be open to listen, be open to understand, and also, like, I don't like too much about the paper, but I like more the conversation.
Thank you, Diego. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
time. Oh, Stella has a question for you.
I really appreciate your comment about consistency. We also asked the same question when we reviewed schools, like, are they consistent because they're all going to meet in the junior high, right? So I'm glad that you think that all the schools should still be consistent in the new formation. And then my question really is, were you part of what did you think of the AB Forward, and how did you participate in that process?
Participate basically like filling up the surveys and everything that they send and listening to the different meetings. So that was my main participation. I think that I understand it was a difficult process. I think that we weren't very clear about the goals. That's what made things not very clear, and sometimes like not getting clear answer of why we are choosing the things we are choosing. I think what Tori said at the beginning, like, she had a lot of ideas on why she was making the decisions. I think that should have been more clearly transmitted to the town so people have a better understanding. I don't know, I always I love the Supreme Court, if you don't mind that comparison. When they make a decision, they do the opinion of the majority and the opinion of the minority, right? I love those because they are like, in difficult problems, you can see both sides, and they kind of write. And when you write the opinion, like, you really like are explaining why you are making that decision. So maybe we should have done something like that. Like, maybe, to me, like, I don't understand some of the decisions behind them. Maybe they have the reason and they are not transmitting it. So maybe we should have done something like that, being able to transmit, okay, this is why we are making this decision, and this will be the other option. So that's an idea. I think that maybe we have great rationale behind the ideas. I don't know. That's the problem. Like, I don't know, and that's why it's generating some of this confusion. I think if we will be able to transmit a clear rationale behind the decision that we make, that will help the people to feel more comfortable, that we understand what we are doing and why we are doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Diego.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to our next school committee candidate, Natasha Skirowski-Onken. I pronounced your name right? I did not. Oh gosh. I thought I had it. Sorry.
It's Sikorsky-Onken. So it's a lot. I understand that. It's new to me too. Good evening, and thank you for this event. My name is Natasha Sikorsky-Onken, and I am running for the Acton-Boxborough School Committee. My wife and I, like so many others, chose to make our home here because of the incredible reputation of the Acton-Boxborough Regional School District. I am a parent of 2 elementary school children in the district, so I'm not just speaking as a candidate, I'm speaking as a mom with a very personal stake in the decisions that are being made right now. I chose to run for school committee because I believe our schools are one of the most important assets of our community, and we are at a real inflection point. Over the next few years, our district will be navigating significant change, including the elementary school reorganization, the ongoing financial pressures and long-term budget planning, and the transition to new district leadership, including the new superintendent. In moments like this, it's essential to have a school committee member who listens carefully, asks thoughtful questions, and keeps the long-term success of our students and schools at the center of every decision. Professionally, I bring 25 years of experience in higher education administration, currently as the Dean of Student Financial Services at Harvard Law School. Over the course of my career, I've worked through many of the same type of challenges our district is facing: shifting student needs, changing institutional priorities, and the constant need to balance resources responsibly. My role has often been to serve as a thought partner and subject matter expert, collaborating with colleagues, weighing trade-offs, and developing solutions that are both responsible and innovative. That work has given me a deep understanding of how decisions made at the K-12 level play out later on when students get to college or enter the workforce. I see every day the skills and supports students need in order to succeed after graduation, and I want to bring that perspective to the school committee so that every AB graduate is well prepared for whatever comes next. My approach to governance is thoughtful, collaborative, and grounded in listening. I don't come in with all the answers, and I don't believe any one person does. I believe in hearing from our educators, families, students, and community members before forming an opinion. I ask questions, I look at data, I consider multiple perspectives, and then work toward logical, practical solutions that aim to build consensus even when decisions are difficult. I've tried to live those values in my involvement in our schools so far. Since my oldest child entered kindergarten, I've been actively engaged at both the school and district levels. I've volunteered through the PTO, helped run events like the book fair and the March Reading Challenge, and served on our school's Culture Ambassador Committee, which was a principal-led initiative focused on building community and inclusivity. At the district level, I participated in the Vision of a Graduate project and engaged in the AB Forward process. Those experiences have deepened my appreciation for our educators, strengthened my understanding of the district's goals and challenges, and reinforced my belief that strong, inclusive schools are the heart of a strong community. If given the honor of serving on the school committee, I will focus on 3 key areas. First being thoughtful leadership through district change. The elementary reorganization, shifting enrollment patterns, and the search for a new superintendent are all significant undertakings individually. These changes must be handled with care, clear communication, and a constant focus on how decisions impact students, families, and educators. As a parent whose own children are directly affected, I am committed to making sure the educational and social emotional well-being of all our elementary students is at the center of each step we take. Second, protecting and strengthening educational excellence. AB is known for strong academics, dedicated teachers, and engaged families. We need to protect what already works well, while also recognizing that students are evolving. I want to support the educators and programs that make our schools strong and look for smart, thoughtful opportunities to innovate so that every student, regardless of background or learning style, has the opportunity to thrive. Third, responsible long-term financial stewardship. Strong schools and sound financial planning go hand in hand. Our community makes a major investment in our schools, and the school committee has a responsibility to ensure that an investment is sustainable. That means understanding cost drivers, seeking efficiencies where we can, and making careful choices that reflect both our educational priorities and the financial realities of Acton and Boxborough. We need to secure the long-term health of the district without placing unsustainable pressure on taxpayers, educators, or students. And ultimately, we need to be accountable and recognize how these decisions have impact on our community. Across all of this, my goal is to strengthen trust between the district and families, between the school committee and the community, and within our schools themselves. Even when decisions are complex and not everyone agrees with the outcome, because nobody will ever agree with the outcome entirely or universally, people should feel that the process was thoughtful, respectful, clear, responsive, and transparent, and that students were always at the center of the decision making. I believe our schools should reflect the values, priorities, and diversity of our community, and I am committed to supporting our educators, listening to our families, and ensuring that our schools remain a source of pride for Acton and Boxborough. And thank you for time. I thank everybody for the time that they're taking to engage in this important process. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Again, the 2 questions. With so many options on how to move forward, the long restructuring process for the elementary schools has been a very difficult one. What would you do to bring our school communities back together?
Yep. So I think this is one thing that I was really proud that our school was thinking about early on. And in February, as part of this Cultural Ambassador Committee, we presented and we sent to the at least to Superintendent Light, and I believe to some members of the school committee, a brochure. You know, one of the things that people are looking for is some familiarity, some confidence that everything is going to be okay. And we thought one way that that would be possible was for the district, because I do think that a lot of this responsibility lies on the district. There is a lot of responsibility on the families. Our PTOs are so much in flux that they're not really going to be positioned well to do a lot of this work. But I think the district is in a position, so I'm so glad about the Common Thread task force that is being pulled together. But a brochure so people can look at this and say, this is where I'm going. And even things as simple as like, this is where I do drop off. Drop off and pick up, for those of you who haven't done it in a while, is complete chaos, and it is extremely, extremely stressful. And you're constantly and worrying that you're in the wrong place, the wrong time, and your child is going to be sitting there crying. So, maps of what the property looks like. Where are you going to meet your students? What time? Who can you call if you're going to be late or if there's something going on? Show me the faces of the people that are going to be in that building so that when my kid walks in and they say, I'm not sure where I go, and we can say, this is who you're looking for. This is the teacher. These are the helpers in your building. And the names of their classmates. We're going to have those classmate lists out early, but even just knowing all of the kids that are going to be there, their classmate may not be in their class, because instead of there being 3 classrooms or 2 classrooms, there are going to be 6 classrooms, but knowing like, all right, I'll at least see them on the playground. And I think that will all be really important. And we're also not the first district to go through this. I have friends in neighboring towns who have done this, and they've talked about what worked well and what didn't work well. A big complaint that I heard from a friend who lives in Lexington as they went through a somewhat similar process with their elementary schools is that the schools weren't open during the summer. There wasn't opportunity for people to come and visit the school and see where they would enter and what the playground looked like. And anyone can go and do this on their own, but that invitation and that welcoming community to meet the administrators in each of the building, I think is really important to help people have the confidence and they'll be confident on that first day that they know where they're going. We're essentially entering kindergarten for about 50% of the class or 50% of the building, because they're all so many people are entering a new space. And so anything that we can do to raise that confidence and comfort level, I think will be hugely helpful.
Thank you. And the next question, over the past few years, many non-student facing areas have been cut. As we have limited budgets under Proposition 2.5 moving forward, would you propose making cuts to teachers or asking the towns for Proposition 2.5 override?
So I think it's clear that the budget that, everyone was talking about this last night in the conversation, that there are no more rabbits to pull out of hats, no additional ways to find efficiencies. Our school district, at the elementary level, we're moving to buildings that were operating between 76 and 91, I think on the high end, percent efficiency or utilization to across the elementary schools. There's going to need to be 95% utilization. That is incredible. That's great. That is showing the taxpayers and demonstrating to the taxpayers we are using your resources and this town's resources responsibly. And I'm not sure that there are other large ways to save a lot of money, but I think this is where hiring our next superintendent and looking for somebody who's not only skilled in change management. There are lots of changes going on now that they are going to need to build consensus around, and they are going to need to heal a community and bring this community together. But I want to see a multi-year plan. I work at a place where we have a 10-year, multi-year financial plan. We revisit it each year. Where are we according to this? When are big changes going to be happening? We need to have leadership that's thinking strategically and long-term, so that we can think about how we're doing this, and so that we can demonstrate to the community that we are good financial stewards. Because if we were to put up an override in 2 years, it's not going to pass. We have to figure out what we're going to do. The last one passed by 45 votes with extreme and strong parent support. I can tell you that support doesn't exist right now. And so we need to do some fixing, and the school committee, I think, needs to do a lot of healing, and the leadership needs to do a lot of healing before we can move forward with that.
Thank you. Thank you, Natasha. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Thank you. As a grandmother of 2 grandchildren, 6 and 9, they are very much into technology. My 6-year-old carries me around in her hip pocket and FaceTimes me whenever she wants to. I'm very concerned about technology and the addiction that was recently written about, I think it was in the Atlantic, and the damage that it's doing to children. And there's a lot of stuff going on here that you probably can't address this specific issue at this point, but it has to be something, I think, that the schools and the families need to really partner with and try to understand, how these devices are used and for what purpose. So that's my question is, do you have any thoughts on that?
I have lots of thoughts on that, and my child can tell you that because I stole their screen as they got off the bus and ran right to their Nintendo. I was like, "You're forgetting this is a Thursday, and there are no screens on Thursdays." But there are screens at school, right? And so I think sometimes that's very frustrating, is that you know how much they're actually using screens at school, and I have to remind myself this is a tool, and when it's used correctly, that is a good thing. And, we don't want our kids to be left behind. There are basics that they have to learn. If we are in a technologically advanced world, they need to learn some of these skills, or not some of them, all of them, we hope. But they also need to understand what's real and what's not real. They have to be able to put that aside and say that, that tool is not serving me right now, or that tool is not necessary. And so I think that we really need to think about how those tools are being used thoughtfully in the classrooms, especially. And there are lots of meetings and parent forums about the use of technology and how much screen time and technology kids are using, and when's the appropriate age. The wait until 8th for phones, and but then also like what is the safety issues as well as having a phone at home. So I think it's such a huge discussion, and I think it really does need to carry through from the school to home about what is responsible, and when should we be using this tool, and when do we as parents also need to put those away and make sure that you're not modeling that type of behavior.
Thank you. And John, one last question. Yeah. Can we pass the microphone?
You mentioned the value of long-term planning in terms of a 10-year financial plan. Can you talk about sort of the pros and the cons associated with long-term planning? And if you've looked at the Acton ALG plan, provide some comment about that as context.
So I have not looked at the Acton ALG plan, so that's not something I can comment on. But I think the strength of a multi-year financial plan is that you see what's coming down the line, right? Like there were many foreseeable things going on. On the way over here, I was listening to the radio, and they were talking about how there's been, I think, a 23% decline in the birth rate in the United States. Right? It was not news that our student population was dropping. It was not news to me when I was a little bit surprised. I think when I walked in, my children were at the new. My oldest entered Douglas at the time that the Boardwalk building opened. And when you walk through the building and you see empty classrooms, you're like, wait, didn't you just ask the towns for a lot of money to open this building? And there are 7 or 8 empty classrooms here. Like, do the taxpayers know this? And then 2 years later, my kindergartner is entering, and there are only 2 kindergarten classes going in. And so, again, that's another empty classroom. And so I think that watching these trends, and nothing exists in isolation. None of these financial issues exist in isolation, but knowing that this is a trend that we're going to need to plan for, and this is the direction that things are going on. It can't always be a threat that we're going to cut teachers. We can't cut any more teachers. If you look at some of the classroom sizes that are proposed for Blanchard, they're almost unsustainable. I can't imagine being in a room with 29 sixth graders, right? I think they have it at like 25 or 26 right now, and that still seems very large. And so I think the pro of that is not necessarily that you start to scrimp here, but you see what's going on and you see where things are going, and it demonstrates a responsibility and forward thinking to the people that you're most responsible to, which is the community. And if they know that you are thinking long-term like that, they'll be more confident and more likely to be supportive when we need to do drastic things like have an override. So.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you.
So our last school committee candidate is Jacob Fay.
I've got one of these devices up here, so I'm not going to read off paper. Thanks, everybody. Thank you to the Acton Democratic Town Committee for having this event. Thank you for everyone here. There's been some great questions asked tonight. Thank you to everyone that's watching in the future. My name is Jake Fay. I'm running for school committee. I'm a career educator. This started probably even before I was born, I realized. My grandmother was an educator. Her brother chose not to go to college, and so she was able to go to college, and she chose to go to college to learn to become a teacher, and she became a 3rd grade teacher. My mother was a teacher. She was a preschool teacher for 40 years. She started multiple preschools up and down the Hudson Valley, and I had probably some summer jobs working with the littles. But I finished college. I spent way too much time swimming in a pool, and I didn't really know what I was going to do after I finished. So I went and studied history for a year, and finishing with a history degree, I still didn't know what I was going to do. And so my mom said to me, well, why don't you go and try out teaching? So I said, sure, let's do that. So I went to a teacher training program in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And the first lesson I taught in front of 7th graders was a conversation about whether or not we should be using indigenous symbols for mascots in sports. And I watched these 7th graders have the most incredible discussion. And I realized that this is what I wanted to do. So I taught for 5 years, middle school American history. I tried to make it come alive as much as I could. I left the classroom reluctantly. This is like the tough part of my story, trying to tell people, like, well, you have that start, but then you leave the classroom. I left it very reluctantly. And I left it because I realized that there were things I wanted to know about teaching history that I couldn't answer and continue to teach well at the same time, because teaching requires everything, right? It's all of you to do it well. So I went back to school to ostensibly learn how to become a better history teacher. But I quickly discovered that the questions that I walked into the classroom were really questions not so much about what does it mean to teach history, but what are the roles of schools in a democracy? And those are really big questions. So I came in a history teacher and I left a political theorist. That is not a 4 to 5 minute story to tell, so if you ever see me, I'm happy to tell that one later. But I left graduate school with a doctorate in education. My dissertation actually was on school reorganizations and school closures. I've studied this problem. I've looked at it the way that communities have struggled with transparency, with communication, with having things done to them rather than with them. And I've watched this process unfold in Acton. Like many families, I heard this was happening and I thought, oh my God, this is very frightening. Closing a school is more than just budgets and buildings, right? These are about communities, they are about friends, they are about places that we call home. And that shows out time and time again when we look at this stuff in cities and towns across the country. But I was impressed with this process because what the school committee and the steering committee tried to do was bring out these decisions to the public and bring them in as much as they possibly can. These are really complex decisions. We get every couple weeks very thick PDFs digitally to look at, and to try to do that on top of a job and parenting can feel overwhelming, but I completely appreciated how much they were trying to share and bring us along in that process. I've co-edited 2 books on educational decision-making that have helped bring about an entire new branch of educational research. But I left that job as well. Maybe this is a millennial trend, I don't know. But the teaching side of me has always wanted to be a doer. And one of the things about the academy is that you spend a lot of time talking to the same people about the same problems and writing papers and not really doing anything. So I left the academy to go work at a nonprofit where I, for the last 3 years, have been helping colleges and universities, faculties, leaders, students, handle the problems that our polarized climate has created. So I work with college students to navigate political difference. How do we talk about the disagreements that we have? How do we come back to the fact that we share many of the same values? We may disagree wildly about what those things mean and where we go with them and how they play out, but there are ways that we can find commonalities and work together. Those are the reasons that kind of prompted me as I saw these openings for the school committee to say, you know, I know a lot about this stuff. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of disagreement and rancor going with parents and the school committee right now. And I think that I can step in and I can help. And one of the other big reasons why I did that is because my family moved to Acton in the summer of 2019. My wife grew up in Lincoln, so she is a Massachusetts native. I, however, am a transplant. I grew up in a small town in the Hudson Valley, but I often joke that the one disagreement that I cannot be constructive about is that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is by far the greatest state in the Union. This fervor extends to Acton. My two boys are in Acton AB classrooms right now. I have a kindergartner and a third grader. And so they are going to navigate this elementary transition that we all hear about alongside many other families, right? I coach youth sports here. We are an active family. My son is on 2 soccer teams and 2 baseball teams right now, and he just wrapped up swimming. And my other 5-year-old is now starting to follow in the same footsteps. It's probably too much, but my wife and I both love herding them on to every single practice that we can. I've also served as the president of the Patriots Hill Recreation Club, helping build financial stability for an aging but well cared for neighborhood institution. Right? I've had to talk to my neighbors about why do we need to raise rates to protect this pool and all the things that are going to happen when you have a 50-year-old hole in the ground made of cement next to a wetland. I've had to talk to them about how we need to change the pay structures so that we actually share, we more equitably distribute who pays for what, so that people who use the pool pay for a little bit more than people who do not use the pool as much, things like swim team and swim lessons. And I literally just handed off this position, and my wife was saying, I'm so glad you are done with this. And I gave it to my neighbor, and then I said, and now I'm thinking about running for school committee. And she was like, what? And all my neighbors have kind of said the same thing. But I feel it's important to be able to bring what I have learned and my experiences to this moment. If I did not at least try and bring this to the Acton community, I would be failing to live up to the things that I think are important. So if you are willing to send me to this committee, here's what I would prioritize. 3 things. The first is a transition that moves quickly. I know everybody is talking about the transition, and the school committee is not just about the elementary schools. We are also thinking about R.J. Gray and the high school, but the transition is something that actually is meant to affect all those schools by helping adjust and right-size the district itself so that we can hopefully stem the tide of the sort of vicious cycle of cuts that we have been going through. So I hope to help with a transition that moves quickly, communicates honestly and transparently, and tries to make sure that every child, every family feels like these new schools are home. Like Dennis said earlier, I sat down and looked at all the options during the steering committee talk and thought, what the heck is going on here? What are the things we should be prioritizing? And what I came to was this is a community-wide challenge, and we really need to step up as a community and bear the challenges of this equally amongst all of us. Now, asking one group or one set of families at one set of school is not fair, right? It's fair to kind of like step up and all take a little bit of the hardship, because it will have an element of hardness to it. But I'm also convinced that we're moving very quickly. We will know things sooner than we've known in the past. When I got home from the League of Women Voters last night, the list of teachers is already out. You can go look, you can see who is going to be at each school, and that's really cool. And you can start imagining, is my son going to get this teacher? Are they going to get that teacher? Right? The second thing is a budget managed with discipline and transparency. I've had some experience really having to make hard choices about what we can and can't do and when we can do it with the Pats Hill Pool. That is on a scale that is far smaller magnitude, obviously, than the school budget. But I think that we need to protect our classrooms, protect the excellent education that we're able to provide for our students, and protect our educators to make sure that they feel secure, they know where they're teaching, what they're teaching, how they're teaching, and who they're working with. The last thing I'll say is a superintendent search done right. We have a plan. We know what our priorities are as a district with AB Forward. We need someone who's going to be able to come in and commit to that plan and not bring in a brand new set of ideas and a brand new set of things that we need to start working for. We need someone who's going to be a steady hand rather than a change maker. And so I think that we need to have a process that will help us land that type of leader, and hopefully start building back some of the trust between the schools and the community that we need right now. So thank you, and I hope to earn your vote.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So again, the first question, with so many options on how to move forward, the long restructuring process for the elementary schools has been a very difficult one. What would you do to bring our school communities back together?
So some of the things I think are already underway. We have to move quickly. We have to be able to get information to families ahead of time so that we can do things that all the other candidates have already said, right? There's lots of great ideas. We need to be bringing people together over the summer. We need to create opportunities for families for PTOs to start, right? Right now we're in a period of uncertainty and the swirl can feel like, when are we going to be able to do any of this? As soon as we have placements when the geographic zones are set, we will start to know who can be on a PTO. And the school committee can actively support the Superintendent Light in making sure that these PTOs start to form, that we actually make sure that perhaps these PTOs draw from and reach communities that don't necessarily have the opportunity to join them or know about when they start and how do you do them. So being active and reaching out to all the different parts of Acton to make sure that people have a fair moment to be part of these PTOs. I think the common threads and trying to bring in as many voices as we can to kind of help source these ideas about how are we going to come together and what are these schools going to be like. I think we have a really fabulous opportunity here to actually create new communities at each of these schools and have the people that are attending them define what those communities are, right? So I think it's about creating the opportunities over the summer and making sure we move quick enough so that the information is out there for families and that we can start to temper the uncertainty that many people feel right now.
Thank you. So the second question, over the past few years, many non-student facing areas have been cut. As we have limited budgets, under Proposition 2.5 moving forward, would you propose making cuts to teachers or asking the towns for Proposition 2.5 override?
As many of the other candidates have said, I just don't think it's possible to make any more cuts to direct student-facing services. I think asking the town for another override is a tall task. So I think we as a school committee would have to be actively doing as much as we can to show that this is a choice of last resort, right? So are we working hard at securing more Chapter 70 funding from the state, right? Are we advocating and partnering with other towns to do that? Are we scouring our budget and looking at potentially new creative ways to build infrastructure within the schools that could actually cut costs by making targeted investments within the schools? One of the things I mentioned last night is that one of the biggest costs that we have is sending students with special needs outside of the school and we pay those costs, right, externally. What could we do to actually strengthen special education services within the schools to lower the outside costs and actually create a much more consistent, powerful, inclusive education system within Acton? I know that the school committee has started to explore some of these options, and I would be new to the game, but this is something that I'd be interested in pursuing and trying to learn more and working with CPAC and the other groups in Acton that have a lot of experience thinking about this type of issue.
Thank you. Do we have a question from the audience well, actually, I think I'll move the question to Jim. Do you have the microphone?
Waiting for Stella to fly in. Going back to your dissertation days, you wrote about school reorganizations just like this. So if we do things very well, how soon will this AB forward process and transition be in our rearview mirrors instead of ahead of us?
Can I give you a really academic answer? Shorter than you think and longer than you think. It's kind of both, right? In some ways, there are unexpected ways that these challenges raise up. Like one thing that we really have to consider is what's going to happen with the Conant property, right? We know that actually many urban districts in particular, when they close schools, they make an argument about savings, and part of that argument is predicated on not having to pay for upkeep at the building that is being shuttered, right? You can't let that building go derelict. You can't let that property go derelict, especially a property that's sitting in the middle of a residential area, right? So I believe that actually the modeling and things that went into the projecting the savings in this case have taken those things into account. But there are always unexpected things that happen with a property that's just sitting there. So I think one of the things I would encourage us to do on the school committee is and work with the town. Again, this is a place where partnering with the select committee, partnering with FinCom, and thinking about like what is going to happen with this property. Where is it going to go? It can't just sit there. It can't just be this thing that we have to take care of as it moves forward, right? How does it happen faster, right? In some ways, once the shock of the move is over, I think people will be into these schools and realizing that these are the same fabulous educators. This is the same fabulous schools. These are the same buildings. These are the same kids that I play sports with or I go to a neighborhood pool with. And it's a little bit different than last year, but a lot of it is the same. And so I think in some ways we'll be through those things quickly. And I think in other ways there might be things that rear up that are new challenges that the school committee would have to think about.
Thank you. Okay, one last question from John.
So I'm not going to ask you a hard question. I won't ask you which of your children is your favorite. Instead, if I was going to read one of your books, which one should I read and why?
I would say democratic discord in schools. So what we did in that book. First off, it's highly relevant to the moment because it looks at the ways in which political challenges have been shaping our schools, and it sort of it tried to get ahead of some of the polarization issues that we've seen. Right. Two, it's really kind of a unique book. What we did in it was we write case studies about a series of ethical, practical challenges that come up in schools. And then we invite people from many different ideologies, perspectives, disciplines to weigh in on what they think the really important thing is to understand. So the book actually gives you a ton of perspectives on these different challenges and lets you start to see some really interesting exchanges between quite conservative thinkers and quite liberal thinkers, people from a moral psychology background and people from a sociological background. And you can start to kind of understand the complexity that educators, decision makers at all levels are dealing with, right? And how simple decisions about how do I respond to political speech in the classroom from a student, how much of a challenging decision that can be for a teacher. And hopefully that even just builds empathy for when we understand, when we look at like, what's going on when, why did that teacher say that? Why did they say that to my child? And it's like, well, they're making so many decisions and here's where they might have been coming from, but there's other ways you can look at it too.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you very much. So we do have one more school committee candidate, that is Daniel Carroll. Is he here, Sam? It doesn't look like he's here. So thank you to all the school committee candidates. Thank you for stepping up to run. This was very good for all of us and for people who'll be watching this in a day or two. We got to know you all well, so thank you. Thanks for stepping up to run. Truly appreciate all of you.